Okay, let's unpack this fascinating material we have today.
Let's do it.
We are diving into excerpts from a text, Art of Intuition, disciplining the inner sense. And, I mean, right out of the gate, it hits us with a total paradox.
Oh, it really does.
It just fundamentally challenges how we think we're supposed to operate.
For sure. Because we're all taught, from grade school to the boardroom to slow down, analyze.
Think things through.
Exactly. Think it through. But this deep dive, and it's focused on this group that's all about radically improving human perception.
Yeah.
It just pushes back so hard against that idea.
So hard. Because this group insists, under these very specific, very disciplined circumstances, that the first thought is often more correct than the second thought.
Right.
Which, to me, sounds less like disciplined training and more like a fast-track ticket to making terrible, impulsive decisions.
The kind you instantly regret.
Yeah.
And that tension is, that's precisely why we're here.
Right.
Our mission is to move past that pop culture idea of just gut feelings. We need to uncover the stringent, disciplined conditions, the actual training that elevates that first thought.
From what? An impulse?
From a random impulse or just emotional noise to becoming a genuine, clean, and reliable signal. This is about discipline. It is not about magic or fantasy.
I really appreciate that framing, especially because the source material gets that we're all a little afraid of listening to a non-rational input. The teacher in the text asks this brilliant counter-question. He says, are we afraid of something external, like extrasensory perception, or
are we afraid of a sense within ourselves that we just haven't acknowledged?
let alone mastered?
And what's fascinating here is how quickly they pivot away from anything esoteric. They frame this from the very beginning as disciplined training.
It's a skill.
It's a skill. If you suspect you have this unacknowledged sense, this raw awareness, the only way to gain control and actually trust it is through structured, rigorous training. You wouldn't trust a pilot who never went to flight school.
Right. Of course not.
You shouldn't trust an undisciplined inner sense either.
So let's jump right into the structure of this training, because it is intense.
It is.
And the first thing that really jumps out at me is that they have to train in groups. Why the group dynamic? I mean, this feels like it should be the ultimate individual pursuit.
You'd think so. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the group isn't for, collective prediction. It's for enforcing collective integrity. It's for controlling the variables, or what they call the new, which is the local term for noise or interference. You need a structure to enforce the conditions for that signal clarity.
And those conditions are absolutely intense. The source lists 5 specific rules they have to maintain just to even begin.
It's not casual.
No, this is radical control.
It requires just absolute commitment. So first, they need quiet and no interruption. Yenten, konjandon. That's the physical side.
Okay, the easy part.
The easy part, yeah. Then they move to the internal psychological requirements,
which are, frankly, so much harder to achieve. We're talking about character requirements. No ego, no seeking fame, hong hao dan.
Right.
And during the actual exercise, 0 suggestion, no leading, kongo yi, and 0 criticism or judgment. You can't tell someone you're wrong, kong she sei.
And then on top of all that, extreme patience. But what's really standing out to me is that 3 of those 5 rules are all about managing the ego.
The social dynamic.
The whole social dynamic. This isn't just about silence, it's about humility.
Okay, this is where I have to push back a little bit, because this level of control, it sounds almost cultish, or at least completely unsustainable for a normal professional life.
How so?
Well, we're taught to be confident, to seek recognition. How can we apply a rule like no ego, kong dan, when we have to perform at work, or just exist in a competitive world?
That's a critical question.
Yeah.
But the group argues that the environment they're creating is a laboratory. It's a place where you strip away the social performance to see what's actually underneath. And the source material, it identifies the deepest reason for these rules. It says the first lesson is not about developing a superpower. It's about discipline of character. Galut kaman hankash.
So the goal isn't the immediate output.
Not at all. The moment someone desires to prove themselves, that's the ego, the haldan, they start to act. They start performing.
And they distort the signal?
They subconsciously distort the incoming signal because they want to deliver a good result, a dazzling performance, instead of a clean one. The ego is, it's literally the biggest signal jammer ever invented.
So they're substituting genuine perception with psychological performance.
Precisely. And if the leader or the group judges them, criticizes them, The person receiving the signal just shuts down. They become unnatural, self-conscious, afraid of failing.
Which leads to their core principle.
Their core principle.
Wow.
A collective that maintains low ego and high integrity produces the cleanest, most trustworthy data over time. You're trying to find the signal, not impress the other people in the room.
Okay, to make this abstract concept concrete for you, the listener, let's bring in some of the stories from the source. They're just so memorable. My favorite example of this patience, this anti-ego discipline, is the case of Jim Needham.
Ah, Jim Needham, yes.
Yeah.
He is the perfect antithesis to that popular idea that intuition is some kind of innate mystical gift you either have or you don't.
Right.
He shows it's a trained skill.
He was, by all accounts, the worst in the class. On the final day, he failed miserably. The source says he got every single case wrong.
Everyone.
He was just completely incapable of sensing the target. Now, if most of us were in that situation, we'd pack it in, we'd say, I have no talent for this, and just move on.
But this is where the discipline kicks in. Jim didn't quit. He saw it as a training deficit, not some deep personal failing.
So what did he do?
He went home and he practiced, consistently, with his wife. And this wasn't glamorous work at all. We're told he did these specific, almost mundane exercises like daily reps in a gym.
Like what were these reps?
Oh, simple repetitive tasks. His wife would cut out news clippings of accidents, and he would just try to describe the event from the clipping.
Whoa.
Or guessing professions just from names in a phone book.
Yeah.
Trying to sense what object was hidden in a box. It was methodical, non-ego-driven work, just building a steady foundation.
And after months of this low-stakes, low-ego practice,
He had a breakthrough. He went from being the absolute worst in the class to one of the most reliable participants, just delivering consistent, clean data.
the takeaway for you listening is so clear.
It is patience and foundational practice. They are the hallmarks of long-term perceptive success. The people who rely on luck or flash, they fizzle out.
But the ones who build slowly, like Jim, without needing that fame,
They often become the most reliable.
and they weren't even trying for, like, clairvoyance, were they? They called their early training something else.
Different sense, which I think really illustrates the subtlety they were after. They weren't trying to describe, the color of the target socks. They were just trying to experience a difference in their internal sensation between objects.
So what does that feel like?
They just noted that metal felt inherently different from food, which felt different from a pet. It was purely a discriminatory sensation.
So it's like, if I can tell the difference between a high-quality vintage wine and a cheap blend, I'm not magical.
No.
I'm just a sommelier who trained my palate to recognize subtle chemical distinctions.
That is the perfect analogy. This is perception training. It's exactly like a musician training their ear to hear tiny differences in pitch, or a CFO spotting an anomaly in a quarterly report that every other analyst missed.
You're learning to distinguish signal from noise inside your own system.
For a practical application, yes.
Okay, now we have to talk about the Othello symbol. This anecdote is fantastic. It just shows how strange and non-rational the raw data can be before the logical mind kicks in.
It's a great one. So a participant during a session has this strong symbolic flash.
And an image.
An image, yeah. A giant black man in a gold cloak who seems to approach another student and then just vanishes.
Now, the average rational person would immediately file that under random useless hallucination and just suppress it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We filter out the bizarre instantly. But what happened next showed the data had integrity.
The rational explanation came later.
It arrived later and externally. Someone then just casually announced to the group, "Oh, I've invited Othello," referencing the play they were discussing.
Wow. So human intuition often presents data first through symbols, images, feelings. It's not neat, rational thought.
No, the rational thought arrives later to verify. It's not supposed to precede and suppress the raw input.
That's the core insight, isn't it?
It is. If you try to force rational thought into the signal reception phase, you just corrupt it immediately. The mind is capable of getting data through these strange, symbolic channels. And without discipline, we confuse that raw signal, the tin hue tho, with all the psychological noise we layer on top.
So if the data comes in looking like a Renaissance play, how do we possibly build a disciplined or repeatable system around something so messy?
Well, that brings us directly into the why behind that controlled environment. Let's organize this using the structure from the sources. The 5 principles for getting clean data.
This is where we finally understand why all those strict, almost excessive rules were so necessary.
Principle 1 is noise reduction. reducing the U. It's described beautifully with the analogy of the windblown lake.
I love that.
Normal thought, especially today, is like a windy lake. The surface is just distorted by notifications, anxiety, information overload.
So the reflection of reality is totally inaccurate.
It's completely gone. The signal is drowned out. So quiet and lack of interruption, reducing the U, it just lets the mind settle and reflect clearly. The signal strength goes up just by reducing the interference.
You don't have to try harder.
You have to be quieter.
Okay, principle 2 is why you have to avoid any kind of coaching. Suggestion kills truth.
This is huge. It just acknowledges how incredibly susceptible we all are to external suggestion.
Even tiny cues.
The tiniest cues, like the guide leaning forward or even telling the receiver, look at the chest area. That's enough to lead a person completely away from their own perception.
So what we think is intuition is often just...
It's implanted data from the environment or from our own subconscious desire. The guide has to maintain absolute neutrality to protect the data's integrity.
Which brings us back to principle 3, the really hard part. The ego distortion. No desire for fame, hadon, no critique, no judgment.
And this is the core social principle of the whole training. If your motivation is to prove you're good, you will inevitably distort the data to match what you want.
And if you're afraid of being wrong,
you'll hold back the signal. A collective that insists on just maintaining low ego, on focusing on accurate reporting, will produce the cleanest, most trustworthy data over time. You have to value truth more than success.
Okay, principle 4. This is the big one. This is the definitive answer to our opening paradox about the first thought versus the second thought.
This is the critical mechanism we came here to understand, yes.
The two levels.
The two levels of thought. The first thought is that rapid, raw signal. The tin hu tho. It's like an immediate, purely perceptive reflex.
Can you give us a real-world example of that distinction?
Sure. Think about pulling out into heavy traffic. The first thought is often purely physiological or perceptual. Wait, or stop. That's the raw data.
Okay.
The second thought is the layer of justification, of fear, of the desire to be rational. It's the, I'm late, I can probably make it if I gun it. Or that feeling must be wrong because I'm a good driver.
It's the story we tell ourselves about the signal.
It is. In Vietnamese, they say, To Valentin Hu. It paints over, it rationalizes, it decorates the raw signal with all our psychological noise.
So the instruction to stick with the first thought isn't anti-reason, it's anti-rationalization.
Exactly. They're told, don't try to immediately make sense of the raw data, just describe it. Scan it. Keep going.
Reason comes later.
Reason comes after, for verification and for application. If reason gets there first, the signal is choked, distorted, and rendered useless by our own fears and desires.
And finally, principle 5, which feels so important today, ethics and boundaries.
A serious disciplined system has to have moral and legal limits. They enforce this strictly. For example, they strictly forbade using people present in the room as targets.
To avoid giving a diagnosis.
To avoid giving a diagnosis. Exactly. You never, ever replace specialized factual knowledge with a subjective feeling.
And what's the rule if you do detect something abnormal, like a medical issue?
The rule is absolute. You tell a licensed doctor. You tell a lawyer. You never tell the patient or the subject directly. True wisdom is knowing these boundaries. An undisciplined sense isn't just unreliable. It can be actively dangerous if it steps outside its proper lane.
So what does this all mean for us, for you listening? The whole exercise we've looked at, it's not about becoming extrasensory. It's about a deep internal discipline.
It's about training awareness, radically reducing noise, rigorously avoiding suggestion, and maintaining ironclad ethics.
We can really synthesize this into 5 living lessons for you, the learner. Things that are immediately applicable, even if you're not sitting in some controlled group.
Okay, lesson 1. To see subtlety, you have to create space for subtlety. You have to turn off the noise, the new.
Modern life makes us perceptually blind.
With information and distraction overload, absolutely. If you want a clear reflection, you have to insist on a still lake.
Lesson 2. Good intuition isn't about being right.
No, it's not about winning. It's about being honest and objective in your observation. You have to prioritize the clean data over the good performance. Be clean, not clever.
Lesson 3 ties back to that 5th principle. Know your boundaries. Don't replace specialized factual knowledge with a subjective feeling.
A subtle awareness is an input, not a verdict.
Lesson 4. This one is kind of strange.
The strange truth that most people live their whole lives without even knowing they've lost this sense of awareness, the Jiaquan Nen beat.
They've just let the mental static and the pressure to perform drown it out completely.
And they think they're being rational, but they're really just acting on that second rationalized thought.
And lesson 5, the Jim Needham lesson.
The slow, patient builder often becomes the most capable because they built on foundation and discipline, not on luck, not on talent, and not on some initial flash.
So what should you do right now to start reclaiming that awareness?
Start small. Just choose 5 minutes of quiet, deliberate solitude every single day. No phone, no music, no distractions.
And during those 5 minutes?
Observe the first thought that arrives. It could be a random image, a quick phrase, a physical feeling. Don't judge it. Don't try to explain it.
Just record it.
Just record it internally as raw data, the Tinti-Hutho. Then just observe life over the next hour or day and see what verifies or contradicts it.
Okay, a final provocative thought to sit with.
When you start on this kind of discipline training, you don't become special. You just become real.
Nui thought.
Real. Real with the raw signal, real with the internal emotion, and real with the necessary boundaries. This relentless pursuit of clean data stripped of ego it's ultimately the path to self-mastery.
And maybe the most profound realization of all is that some doors of perception, of subtle insight, they only really open when we walk through them together. By finding a clean, high-integrity group that prioritizes relentless discipline over some flashy spectacle.